Slice of Life, episode 16. We are zooming right along. Quarantine continues in New York and worldwide, and Billy and I will hopefully make today just a little bit better. And Billy, I'm starting off with my favorite social slice. I'm diving right in because you're kind of my favorite social slice. You're also my chicken parm hero because as the dynamic on this show goes, you look at me and you say, been there, done that, kid. You got a lot to learn. Dad, husband of the year, favorite social slice come from Long Island's Wantagh, where Saturday, a neighborhood celebrated a birthday equipped with a scenic driveway movie theater. If you want to know what summer relaxation looks like, it is under the stars watching a movie. And who put the whole thing together but you, Billy Harner, for your wife, her birthday, 2 kids watching the movie. Tell us the backstory to this because it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the backstory is we haven't done anything in 6 weeks. So I was trying to find a way for everybody to get together and to have a birthday celebration and just be together without actually being together. So we came up with this idea for a drive-through movie theater. So I worked with one of the companies, Trio Productions, that does stuff for the Cyclones, and they had this 16-foot inflatable movie screen that they brought out to my house, set it up on the lawn, and we had some people pull up in their cars, like a real drive-through, and it was nice enough where some people were able to sit in lawn chairs and blankets, and it was a nice way. Just everybody sort of said it was nice to finally have plans for the first time in a long time. So it was just a nice way to get together, and you could interact, and kids could see each other, and they could talk to each other, but with not being next to each other. So we still were able to practice social distancing and have a nice night out. We had some popcorn and some candy and, all the movie theater stuff, just in a different setting and in a way to be safe, and be together without being together. So it was a nice night. My wife had a good time. Her whole family was here. We had some other people from the block that were able to participate as well. So it was something different and, something that was a lot of fun and just felt good to be outside and be around people, sort of. So it was a good time for sure.
I'm glad I was able to interview you on your own show about throwing your wife's birthday. By the way, was it a full surprise?
It was a surprise to the point where it was like the movie was going to start at 7 and the guy showed up at 6:15 and he was inflating a giant screen on our lawn. So up until that point, it was
kind of a dead giveaway there.
Yeah, that was a dead giveaway. But so up until that point, it was a surprise because I was sort of nervous about it because I didn't know how it would work out and if people would be able to, and especially kids, be able to stay away from each other and the first time they're seeing their cousins and their friends and stuff. But everything worked out well, and I'm still married, so she didn't hate it too much. So we're good so far. So good. For me, without self-promoting myself, I came up with a different favorite social slice. So, so this weekend was the NFL draft, and may have been a weekend for a lot of us, but creativity takes no breaks. So the NFL draft this weekend, a lot of the people that were being selected, they didn't have access to them, so they needed to do their own sort of filler. There weren't as many interviews and things like that. So a trending topic on Twitter became I'm trying to find a nice way to put this. Tragedy porn, I think, is what the trending topic was, something similar to that, where ESPN was highlighting the worst moments of everybody's life, basically, it seemed like, after these people were drafted. So it was, here's so-and-so from University of Alabama, he's 6'6", and oh, by the way, his mother died. One perfect example was Trayvon Diggs, who's an Alabama cornerback, selected 50th overall by the Dallas Cowboys. He's the brother of Buffalo Bills wide receiver Stephon Diggs. So that's an obvious anecdote that you would highlight. But his profile also showcased the fact that his father died of heart failure in 2008. So nothing like putting a damper on the best moment of a young man's life. So what happened was there's a Twitter user who goes by FitzGSN, who started making ESPN-style draft profiles for superheroes. So some highlights included Superman, who the profile said, consensus #1 pick, incredible vision, rocket arm, followed by birth mother and father passed away in home planet's explosion, and stepfather was swept away by a tornado. So it continues. The Incredible Hulk for Bruce Banner, who, by the way, was listed as hometown from Dayton, Ohio, just because we need to get Ohio in this show as many times as possible. He was the potential anchor for your offensive line, but it was followed by his ex-girlfriend threw herself off a cliff to save the world. So there's ones for Spider-Man, Iron Man, Batman, Black Panther, anybody you can think of. It's worth a read, get some laughs out of it. And it was just sort of a perfect encapsulation of what the NFL draft experience was like for the last few days.
You know, like as a broadcaster, I read game notes and media notes. I want to know as much as possible, and I want to use that during a game. And once is more than enough. And could you imagine just player after player after player after player? I mean, it just got a little bit overwhelming. Like, all right, we get it. You want a sad story. You want to make it into a nice ending, but God, killing me.
Yeah, everybody loves a good human interest story, but at some point, you just got to move on and find something else. Talk about the guy's ability to run block or something instead of the fact that his mother had a coronary.
Let's go on to Chicken Parm Heroes. Let's stay in my favorite place, Dayton, Ohio. Bill, let's go back to the heartland.
Yeah, I said to Keith earlier that I think that my location settings for my computer must say that I'm someplace in Ohio and not in New York here on Long Island, because every story that I find that I'm absolutely drawn to is from Ohio. So my first story is about comic book superheroes. This next story is about a real life superhero. For this, we head to Ohio, where Megan Seitz checked herself into Joint Township's emergency department on April 1st, where she was having difficulty breathing and was unable to lie flat. And oh, by the way, she was also 7 months pregnant. Yeah. So shortly after, she was diagnosed with coronavirus and was eventually placed on a ventilator. She was briefly removed from the ventilator when things started to improve, but then things took a turn for the worse, and she had one of her lungs collapse. So she underwent something called an EMCO treatment. I don't know what it is. I'm not a doctor, so I looked it up. It's apparently where they use a device that replaces the heart and lungs of a patient and does the responsibilities of the heart and the lungs. And she was flown by a helicopter to Miami Valley Hospital, where she delivered her son via C-section. So then after 10 days, the mom was recovered enough from coronavirus that she was able to finally see her son, Jameson, who was born premature, but was healthy nonetheless. And after about 10 days, the mom and son were reunited for the first time. Mom is now home, fully recovered. And Jameson is expected to be in the hospital for another 4 weeks or so before being reunited with mom and dad at home. So the fact that this woman overcame coronavirus, but also delivered a child while dealing with it on a ventilator is unbelievable. Having been in 2 delivery rooms with my wife, I understand how ridiculous it is. Being a man, I don't truly understand how ridiculous it is, but what this woman accomplished and the strength and tenacity that it takes to fight off coronavirus coupled with giving birth is just hero level stuff, unbelievable, and great that it had a happy ending.
This is the part where I don't pretend I know what giving birth feels like, but going on a limb to say that that's insane. And props to the doctors in Ohio and at Miami Valley Hospital who made that happen. Story I'd rather read about than like watch a video about how it happened. I'll just kind of read that, but heroic.
Yeah, being a dad in those situations, you know, when completely healthy, normal births with my children, not being able to be there, which was the situation in this instance, and just the stress of everything that's going on there too. I can't even imagine what that whole family went through, but had a bright ending, had a happy ending. So that's what we like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. My Chicken Parm hero is the fact that the U.S. Navy ship Comfort is leaving. You forget how much progress we're making, because when this whole thing started, it was like all hands on deck, building field hospitals, and then we need these ships to come to New York and to California. And now to find out in the last day or 2 days that this ship is leaving, it's kind of like the fear is leaving a little bit, because you're looking at these charts and these graphs and seeing these numbers that are unthinkable about what could happen. And here we are weeks later and almost a month later. And this ship, which to me, as far as like marketing is concerned, means all that fear that was bottled up. Turns out we didn't really need that ship, which is even better news. And now that it's leaving, it reminded me of, I ride the subway 27 stops, the Q train down to Coney Island every time I used to go to work. And you'd see billboards on the subway change all the time. There was one for a dating app, and it was genius. It said, the app we want you to delete, like use the app, fall in love, delete us, please. And like US Comfort, leave, please, because that means good news is happening. So app deleted, finally.
Yeah, that's with the Comfort leaving, and they're talking about sort of exit strategies, I guess, for the Javits Center and all the other sort of pop-up hospitals that they have as well. That's all good news, all good signs, and things are heading in the right direction. And the fact that the discussion this weekend was not about, the totals and we need this and we're running out of that. It was about how we're going to start phasing life back into normal, or some semblance of normal. So good news all around, and bright spots up ahead. We're looking, the light at the end of the tunnel.
Speaking of normal, in sports, normal for us equals baseball being played with fans. Obviously, it's a bit of a pipe dream right now, but we're getting closer to that. And Billy's got a good story for us.
Yeah, so we've talked previously about the Taiwan's CPBL, which is one of the only sports leagues in the world that's currently active and playing. And it's sort of been a test pilot, I guess, for what everybody else is going to have to do. As players pull into the parking lot, they get their temperatures taken. As they're walking into facilities, they have walk-through infrared body temperature scanners to make sure that everybody's in peak health and not putting the rest of the teammates at risk. So they're playing in front of no fans. But one team that we've highlighted numerous times, the Rakuten Monkeys, they had a rough weekend, lost 2 games. They had been on a hot streak before then, but they'll bounce back. I'm a big Monkeys fan now, so I got to be optimistic about it. You got to believe. So they've been filling the stands with cardboard cutouts to make it feel like there's a little more of a crowd there. But for one player in particular, Ryan Carpenter, who began his professional baseball career playing in the New York Penn League, probably played at MCU Park with the Hudson Valley Renegades, and had a few stints with the Detroit Tigers in the major leagues. He is a pitcher for Rakuten, and his fiance secretly worked with the front office to put her face on 4 of the cardboard cutouts in the stands so that he would see a familiar face when he was pitching, and she'd be able to watch, wink, wink, from the stands. So it was a pretty cool idea. Definitely a touch of home, and I'm sure as an American overseas, it's got to be tough enough to begin with, but particularly with everything else that's going on, it must be even more difficult. So a very nice touch from Ryan's fiance, and a very nice glimmer into what baseball can be like going forward, and hopefully sooner rather than later getting things started here in the States. And other good news, the Korean Baseball Organization, the KBO, is set to start on May 5th. And in the greatest news that I may have ever heard, well, at least recently, ESPN is in talks to air their games live here in the United States. Live sporting events on television in the United States is almost coming potentially. So fingers crossed that'll be here soon.
Looking at the photo of Ryan Carpenter, seeing his fiance's face on 4 different faces, I just want to go out on a limb and say that obviously these two have not been quarantined together, because I'm sure my fiance and I love each other. This is great, get along. But when this is all over, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to probably go for a walk, by myself for like 10 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the last thing that your fiance would want to see was 4 of you at this point. One of you is more than enough.
For my sports topic, we have to every Monday break down a little bit of The Last Dance. Last night, the Michael Jordan Bulls documentary, parts 3 and 4 came out, and it's just going to be, rapid fire responses. The Vegas story, which you told me a little bit about in the preview, was, I mean, just unthinkable today that Dennis Rodman would, in the middle of the season, say, I need to go to Vegas to unwind. That was amazing. The Miller Lights, while he's like walking and talking with the media, like think about the image of, Mets draft a new player from college, old enough to drink. He's with the Cyclones his first year, and he's just like having a Bud Light while talking to the reporters. Like it just would not fly at all today. And then one of your favorite topics of the night, Isaiah Thomas not shaking hands with the Bulls after they lost in the conference finals that last year. And I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, the NBA was way different, 70s, 80s, 90s, way different than it is today. People actually care more today than they really did in the 70s and 80s. So I was like, all right, I get it. And then MJ is talking about how Isaiah is just a bit disrespectful. There's no sportsmanship. And they show clips of Michael handshakes for the Pistons when they lost to the Pistons. And I went, okay, that's why the world knows who Michael Jordan is and not really who Isaiah Thomas is, because just Michael's a different breed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Isaiah Thomas is a great player in his own right, but that's really what, to me, makes Michael Jordan such a special player and just a legend. He's in terms of, all-time sports. The fact that 30 years later, this guy is sitting there and you could visibly see that he still hates the Detroit Pistons is absolutely exquisite. Like, I want to hate anything as much as Michael Jordan hates the Pistons. This is a next level of just hatred. It's unbelievable. It's spectacular. I also enjoyed, the Vegas story where Michael Jordan has to go basically knock on the door like a den mother to get Dennis Rodman out of a hotel and back to practice, which he then shows up wearing pajamas to, which was exquisite. And this really isn't that long ago. Like, this isn't like the 1950s where guys were smoking cigarettes in the dugout. Like, this is, 20 something years ago at this point. And to see how different things were once, there wasn't TMZ, there wasn't Twitter, there wasn't Instagram. So you're not going to end up on somebody's timeline in the next morning when you're in Vegas drinking High Life when you're supposed to be playing the power forward against the San Antonio Spurs. So that whole thing was great. The entire show is just unreal. And Phil Jackson, the whole backstory with him and his connection with Dennis Rodman was brought some interesting dynamics to, and it sort of explained why it worked, I guess, the way it did. And they're both sort of free spirits, and just I can't get enough of it. And next week, I think one of the episodes is the Dream Team the Dream Team growing up, that was peak me. That was like 9-year-old me growing up. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. I had the posters. I had the stickers on my wall. I had the jerseys. I can't wait for that. And there's some stories about Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas that I think are going to come out revolving around the Dream Team. And it's good. It's real good. Like, hatred. Take it. I love it.
This is pretty amazing that like the 90s, we're reliving it today, and we're also reliving it the way people used to like watch TV shows, millennials, where we'd have to wait every week to watch something. We can't just have it now, even though we have been dying for it. I have been dying to do this show with you since Friday, Bill. I'm glad you went back to Ohio, went back to the well a little bit, and I enjoyed it today. And we'll see you again tomorrow for episode 17 already.
We're getting there. Light at the end of the tunnel. Bye-bye ships. Hello office, maybe, I guess. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
All right, Bill. See you tomorrow.
Take care.